Anger is never about what we think it is about. It is part of a relationship trap series. Every episode covers one way the past is driving the present in our closest relationships. This is episode 23. I want to start with a moment that almost everyone has had. You explode over something small, dishes left in the sink, something someone said that shouldn't have mattered, a minor thing, and nothing thing, and the reaction was completely disproportionate, and somewhere inside the explosion, a part of you knew that it wasn't about the dishes, but you couldn't stop, because it wasn't about the dishes, and something that isn't about the dishes can be solved by discussing the dishes. Which is why those conversations never actually fix anything. Here's what is actually happening. The brain has a system for dealing with emotional threat. When something difficult happens, something that produces fear, hurt, humiliation, a sense of powerlessness, the brain tries to process it. But not everything gets processed in the moment. Something are too large. Something happens in contexts where processing isn't possible. The meeting where you felt dismissed and couldn't say anything. The conversation where you felt unheard and kept your mouth shut. The situation where you felt powerless and had no way to change it. Those feelings don't disappear just because the moment passed. They get stored, not resolved, but stored. And stored emotion material doesn't stay neutral. It accumulates. Small frustrations stuck on the top of each other. All the injuries get added to new ones. The conversation from last week on the top of conversation from last year. Feeling of being dismissed today on the top of feeling of being dismissed every day for the last 6 months. Until something minor happens. Something completely ordinary. Dishes in a sink, a tone of voice, a small thing said in the wrong way, and it breaks the structure. Everything that was stored finds an exit, all at once, through the nearest available person, who is almost never the person who caused the original accumulation. They are just the one who was there when it finally came out. The explosion felt disproportionate because it isn't about a trigger, it is about everything that arrived before the trigger without anywhere to go. Now here is the part that changes how you understand every significant anger you have ever felt. Anger is secondary emotion. That means it is almost never the first thing that happened. Something else happened first, underneath almost every significant anger. There is something more vulnerable. Fear, hurt, humiliation, grief, powerlessness. Those feelings came first, but they are quieter, they are exposed, they require acknowledging something painful. Anger is louder, anger feels stronger, anger points outward instead of inward. So the brain registers for anger because anger feels safer than the thing underneath. The person who explodes in traffic is often someone who felt powerless all day. In the meeting, in the conversation, in the situation they couldn't change. And then someone who cut them off the motorway. And for the first time all day, there was something to put it. The person who lashes out at a partner over something small is often someone who felt unseen or unheard, or frightened about something they didn't know how to say, and the partner was safe enough to receive what nobody else was going to get. This isn't an excuse, it is an explanation, and explanations are more useful than excuses, because explanations point toward what can change. Here is the trap that makes this a cycle. We explode, we feel relief, the stored pressure releases it. For a moment it feels like something was resolved, but it wasn't. The pressure was discharged onto the nearest person, who now has damaged it, on top of whatever the original unresolved material was. The relationship absorbs the cost of something that was never about the relationship. And the original material, the fear, the powerlessness, the hurt, is still there. Because exploding didn't touch it. It just provided a temporary release. The anger was a release, not a solution. And the cycle continues because the stored material starts accumulating again immediately. So what actually helps? The first thing is to develop the habit of naming what is underneath, not what you are angry about, what you are actually feeling. Frightened, humiliated, hurt, unseen. Not I'm angry about the dishes. What happens today that made you full, that made you feel powerless? What happened this week that you never said out loud? What is the thing underneath the thing? The more precisely you can name the underneath emotion, the less power the anger has, because the anger was protecting the underneath emotion. Once the underneath emotion is named, the protection is no longer needed. The second thing is to create a delay between the trigger and the response, not to suppress the anger. Suppress doesn't work. It just changes when and how it comes out. A delay, long enough for the actual feeling to have chance to surface, long enough to ask, what is the actual about? 10 seconds, 30 seconds, enough space to move from reaction to response. And the third thing is to audit the accumulation. If your anger is regular and disproportionate, the question isn't about the triggers, it is about what is being stored, that isn't being processed, what isn't being said, what isn't being addressed, what needs isn't being met, that keeps filling the reservoir until the next small thing breaks it. That about is uncomfortable. This is also the only thing that actually changed the pattern, that anger isn't the problem, it's the signal. And the question isn't, how do I control my anger? The question is, what is my anger trying to tell me that I have not been willing to hear? If you know someone who keeps exploding over small things, or if you recognize this in yourself, Send them this, not as criticism, as the explanation that changes what the conversation about anger actually needs to be about. And in next episode, we aren't afraid of failing. We are afraid of what success would demand from us. And those are completely different problems.